Hey guys, I'm doing my comedy show in Chicago Thursday, April 9th. Also upcoming shows in Wales and London and more. ColtCabana.com for all this information. But for now, enjoy the show.
This is The Art of Wrestling with professional wrestler Colt Cabana. It's Colt Cabana.
All right, how you guys doing? Come on in. This is it. You're about to listen to The Art of Wrestling, a professional wrestling podcast. It's a life podcast. It's a personal journal. It's an entry way into the minds, the souls, the hearts, and the lives of the people involved in the world of professional wrestling. I am your host. My name is Colt Cabana. I am a Bomba Sox wearer. I'm a bike rider back in this decent weather. But most importantly, though, I am a professional wrestler. I am sitting here live in the studio apartment in Chicago, Illinois. Before we go any further, this is a fan-supported and listener-supported podcast, supported by people just like you. We give it to you free of charge every single Thursday. ColtCabana.com, SoundCloud, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts from. A couple great ways that you can support, rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Tell a friend via social media, via text, via email, or if you got a couple of bucks in your pocket, head on over to ColtMerch.com and DigitalColt.com. T-shirts, buttons, pictures, posters, DVDs, digital downloads, premium podcast. Episodes 1 through 35 are over there. Wrestling Road Diaries, regular or digital, I'll sign a copy for you. Make a purchase, ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com. All right, I guess I do have a pretty big subject that I want to dive into that has to do off of the news of a certain firing of a certain coach in a certain system. But I want to introduce you to my guest this week, Flash Flanagan. Who is Flash Flanagan? Flash Flanagan is me without a podcast. Some of you guys, I guess my generation, my age, or a couple years before or after, might remember him from being in that lightweight tournament for the original WWF Lightweight Heavyweight Championship. And he was just a guy in a tournament. You're like, oh, here's a new wrestler on WWF. And then we kind of never saw from him again. Some of you who might be familiar with the Puerto Rico scene might know Flash Flanagan as Slash Venom, who made a huge name for himself on the islands, but not an American television superstar. And I say that incorrectly because WAPA TV, where Puerto Rico television was, IWA, and that's definitely was American television because Puerto Rico is part of America. I know that. Look at me. I'm a smart guy. But you get the idea. You know, no TNA, no WCW, no WWE Attitude Era. Just a guy, an independent wrestler, a guy who knows and knew the job and trying to make a beat for himself, was in the developmental system, was trying to get on that television, was given a bit of a taste, and then it was taken away. And then he said, I got to make a living for myself. Went to Puerto Rico, became a star in Puerto Rico, and then it's like, okay, I got to become fresh. I can't stick around Puerto Rico all day long because we're not becoming millionaires on that island. And so he can't come back to America and then jump on TV. All of a sudden he comes back and nobody's heard of Flash Flanagan or Slash Venom because that Puerto Rico island, there is just a weird non-buzz about it. This guy is what this podcast is all about. Take it in, enjoy it. He was a part of the developmental system. There is a bit of like, listen, I can't say bitterness about it because he lived his life. He was a part of that system. And if you're the asshole saying, Colt just can't live it down, and Flash just can't live it down. And listen, if you were in these steps, if you were in these shoes, you would have wanted to be a giant star. So of course you're going to look back. Like, your life now is fine. My life now is great. Flash's life now is great. But of course you want to be like, fuck, would have been way cooler if it wasn't what it was. But it is what it was, so we're living it. But we can look back and we could tell stories about what it could have been, what it was, what it should have been. That's life. This is our bar stool, man. We're sitting at the bar with beers in our hands. For me, Diet Coke with a squeeze of lemon. That's the drink of choice. And we tell our stories. We tell our war stories. Flash has got tons of them. I have a story that I've been afraid to tell forever. And even as I'm going to tell it on this story, I'm still going to kind of back away and not jump in. But I want to make one thing clear, and I want to say one thing. Congratulations. Congratulations to who's ever in that developmental system right now, to whoever has been in the developmental system and has had a person like the one that was recently dismissed, to anybody in a job who's had one of those bosses who inspires by being an asshole and not someone who positively motivates you to get shit done. Because being a leader and being an asshole while being a leader will only make your employees, the people under you, hate you, have the most lack of respect for you as a human being. And when your job and when your duties are all said and done and those people are on to different places, that's going to be your legacy. I feel bad for the guy that that's the kind of person he chose to be. I feel so happy for the ones who feel free. And believe me, with the phone calls and the text messages and the messages from friends of friends of friends who have told me how happy they are. And it's sad that that is a system, that is a place where you cannot speak up. You cannot speak up. And I'm not saying this as a critic outside of the industry. I'm saying this as a person who has been part of the developmental system. And while I was there, I was referred to as a kike, and I was too scared to go to anybody in a higher up position, because here was my thought process. I tell somebody that this guy refers to me as this. I tell somebody that this guy is anti-Semitic, and I'm going to assume they're going to take his side. Why? Because they always have their sides. So then what's going to happen is I'm going to have to go to practice every single day. He's going to hate me. He's going to write me up as the worst guy, and he's going to have me fired. So what can I do? There's only one thing I can do. I can push forward, pretend like it didn't and doesn't happen, and hope that I can make it to the roster so that part of my life can be behind me. That's what happened to me. That's what was happening with all of those guys who were being shunned and made to feel lesser. And I don't think it'll change. I mean, they're putting positive dudes in positive places now, hopefully. But that mentality of speaking up, I don't think it's realistic. But to those guys there now, and to those guys that guy treated like shit for so long, congratulations. And that's just my opinion. I'm allowed to say my opinion, right, on my own forum? Just my opinion. Song of the Week this week is brought to you by ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm not sure if you've seen the store lately. Jeff Jarrett has a Slapnuts t-shirt. There's Road Warriors shirts, Eddie Guerrero shirts, CM Punk Thor baseball-style t-shirts, original Colt Cabana stuff on there, black t-shirts, XXX, XXX, 5X stuff, giant Colt heads if you want. When you buy a shirt, you support that person or their family directly. That's why we set it up that way, because we're not greedy corporate pieces of shit. All right, song of the week this week is I Don't Want to Be a Babyface by probably my new favorite band out of Indiana, the Razor Ramones. Get it? I love it. Support them at therazorramones.bandcamp.com and on Twitter at therazorramones. Enjoy it. We'll be back with Flash Flanagan.
No, they're making the playoffs this year. I've already made the prediction.
You made the prediction. Now, Flash, you're, have I known you as a diehard Cubs fan your whole life?
Yeah.
You have the personality of a diehard everything, don't you?
I'm a diehard Cubs fan and Star Wars fan. I'm a big Star Wars collector.
Yeah.
And I get made fun of because a lot of people don't realize when I carry the kendo stick. Everyone would always bring, as soon as Sandman started doing the kendo stick, it seemed like you have every indie show there's someone with the kendo stick. So when I went to Puerto Rico, they did a bit with Andy Anderson and Miguel Perez. And Andy got put out, and when he came back, he beat Miguel up, took the kendo stick from him. So the bit with Savio, said, go get the stick back. So I get the stick. So that's how I got stuck with it. Then I started painting them. And I forgot.
You weren't doing a stick before Sandman, were you?
No, I don't ever want to carry the kendo stick because to me, it's just stealing someone else's.
It
gimmick.
says Sandman, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's someone, gimmick stealer. So I started painting them to be different. And when he first started back in the day, Jason Lee, he always wanted to do this gimmick called Jason Skywalker and be from a town far, far away. And he talked about having the kendo stick as his lightsaber. So I told Jason, I'm going to do this. So I started painting the stick, and it was my lightsaber.
Yeah.
And no one ever caught on to the rib behind it that I don't got a kendo stick. I got a lightsaber I'm hitting you with. So,
and you weren't even Flash Flanagan anymore. You were then Slash Venom.
Yeah.
Which is straight off the Star Wars boat.
No, when I got down to Puerto Rico, get in the car, Luke's picked me up because we're going to change your name, mate. Do you mind? Like, I don't care as long as I got a check each week. He goes, we're going to call you Slash Venom. I'm like,
wait, like he was just making that up, or he couldn't remember what it was?
Couldn't remember.
Okay. And again, this is Bushwhacker Luke.
Yeah, so
right?
I didn't care. As long as I got a check, and I went ahead, and that's how Slash Venom came about.
So Slash Venom. And we'll dive into the Star Wars stuff. You being a giant Star Wars collector and fan, you didn't even come up with the name Slash Venom.
No,
it was just given to you.
That was just given to me.
Come on, you were like, hey.
No, because I was after I got released from JWE for my developmental, I went to TNA and I was teaming with Wolfie, who was Slash, and we were the disciples of the new church, and I was Cobain there, and so
were you really?
Yeah,
God, I don't remember any of this.
No, I mean it was a cool gimmick. I mean,
your name was Cobain?
Yeah, I was suicidal. The whole thing was they did the bit where I had my wrist sliced.
Yeah.
Where I tried killing myself for humor, and the whole thing was I was just suicidal and do the crazy stuff. And did the show 1 week. I did the first day after I got released. It was like a month later. You had the 30 days where they said you couldn't do anything. So as soon as it was up, next day I'm doing that pay-per-view bit they did. So go out there. When I got there, Vince Russo goes, "What do you got to wear?" I'm like, "Well, I got my black tights." And he goes,
I also have this Obi-Wan Kenobi robe in my trunk that I carry at all times.
Well, this is how my TNA career was pretty much dead from day one. Cool gimmick, but he goes, "Go out and get some jeans and a tore-up T-shirt and stuff." I'm like, all right. So I went down to Salvation Army right down the road, got a pair of jeans and T-shirt, dirtied it up. As soon as I went to the ring...
By the way, that's a straight Memphis move, right?
Oh, this was terrible. This crowd starts chanting Nashville Brawler. Because I'd been in Nashville for so long anyways, doing the stuff for Memphis and for Burt. And I came back and I told Jeff, I go, well, that was bad. And I go, I got to change the way I look for that one.
But in WWE, they're like, okay, we have an idea for a gimmick, and they'll whatever, there'll be like a whole to do and a process. And like Memphis, it's like, oh, I need stuff to wear for wrestling. Oh, I'll go to the Salvation Army. Like, right? That just sums it all up.
All I was told, show up with dye your hair black.
Okay.
And that was it. And I didn't talk to any. Wolfie's the one that called me up and said, "Hey, I have you as my partner here and all this." I'm like, all right, I need a job anyways. So I did that 1 week. Came down the next week, did this Battle Royal thing. I don't know what it was for, the NWA tag titles or something at the time. Did that. Come down there the following week, wasn't on the show. Following week, wasn't on the show. And then I went up and said, "Hey, I'm not driving to Nashville and not know if I'm booked, so I need to know something." And they're like, "Well, we'll let you know." They never called and let you know. They had no idea really I thought what was going on at the time. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I talked to Luke or talked to Dutch and got to Puerto Rico. Because I knew Victor Quinones from back when I did that lightweight tournament.
Right.
That's how I met Victor.
So after that TNA was your first, because like I think you have a bunch of different ways that you're known in your career, and the Puerto Rico run is one of them. That was the first time you did Puerto Rico, was after TNA and that thing? And you'd never been there before?
Never been there.
Okay.
And but I met Victor. But Victor had me booked in Mexico. And you always hear stories about guys, but you never really know the story about guys. You always hear, oh, he's a little funny. And I can't say anything about it. Victor's always been good to me. But Also, I know Victor was gay.
Sure.
So
I don't think. Well, was that out? I mean, was that out in the world, or is that just like the hard, like the most obvious rumor of all time?
I mean, the boys would talk about it, but you don't really know until
he asks you to take your pants down.
Well, yeah, and when I did that lightweight tournament, I didn't even know I was booked for that. I'm watching Raw one night, and they see the brackets, and there's my name on it.
Get out of here.
And I'm like, well, I'm booked? Cool. Or are they using someone else's flash flame?
Yeah, what if they were?
And then Cornette calls me and goes, hey, I got you booked for this tournament. Can you do it? I'm like, yeah.
Right.
And so that was my first time ever even working for Vince. And the match with Brian, I thought, I mean, it sucked. I'm sitting there. Times when you think you're ready, and I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And
is that on YouTube?
Yeah.
You're not even happy about that. You wish I wouldn't even say that.
And you can look it up, and it is what it is. Some people say, oh, that wasn't bad. And I look at it, I'm like, well, maybe it wasn't bad, but
I think I remember it kind of being like being good and hoping hoping the best for you as a young wrestling fan.
Well, my spot, I do the dive out do the flip out to the floor. You don't see it because they're a break. They're showing the brackets while I'm doing the flying around.
Oh man!
And so
it's Kevin Dunn at his finest, right there.
It was the shits.
It's funny you made a comment to me. And okay, so when did you start wrestling? I won't say how long you've been wrestling.
92.
90, fucking hell, 92, really?
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay, so you said to me, you're like, oh, well, I could just say anything now because I'm not going to get a run. Right? What was the quote maybe?
Oh, it was like I never did any podcast, and I've always wondered why like Rob Feinstein has never asked me to do one of his shoot videos.
Well, maybe you're lucky.
Well, I mean, you see all these guys after they get done with Vince, they're all doing these shoot interviews. And I'm like, who the fuck are they? They've never done it. I mean, just because you got hired by Vince doesn't mean you're good. I mean, look at the boogeyman. I mean, for real.
Yep.
I mean, let me go out and eat a turd and I'll get a job.
You know, it's funny. I use him as an example for the same thing. Just like people are like, you know, like where you are in your wrestling career. And it's like, well, I could be me and have this grounded experience of a long journey and like always kind of be around, or you know, if you just want to say, hey, you're a WWE wrestler, well, like do what Boogeyman did. He was there for a year, and like you can always, if you want to be that guy who's bragging you're a WWE wrestler, I guess you can always have that, you know, like, and that's not saying that he's, and no offense to him, but like he ain't the wrestler that a lot of these journeymen are. These guys that are
all the power to him. I mean, he went out there and ate worms.
Yeah.
I mean, eat worms and the bell rings, and it's like, well, that's about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
so nobody came crawling after you for the inside scoop, and you were ready to tell it all.
I mean, now, I care less. I mean, what's it going to do to me now? They're going to say, oh, I'm not going to book you.
Right.
Like, you weren't going to book me to begin with.
Yeah.
And
well, I was kind of interested in, like, when did you say, like, oh, I don't think it's happening?
Probably.
Did you come to that realization?
No, I mean, there's always, you never say never, but when I got back from, I could tell there's, from the beginning there's a lot. Like, whenever I had my developmental deal, everything was going, it seemed like pretty good. I mean, Jim Ross was there in control. He'd come down, and he always had positive things to say. He's like, hey, keep up the good work. And that was the last really good comment I got from him. And Nova was in there, and Ross was like, hey, keep up the good work. You're going to make a lot of money in this business.
And he also said work on your shoulders and your upper chest, and then you'll be in the game.
It was pretty much, they all wanted you to lean up and harden up. Then you lean up and harden up, and it was like, oh, we want you to put some weight back on. Yeah. And it was always that. But then he got replaced by Laurinaitis, and I knew whenever Laurinaitis was in there, I was working with Batista, and he had his Leviathan character, and it was pretty much everyone go out there and do your best to make him look good. And no offense, I mean, good for him. I mean, he did good for himself, but you had to go out there and take the bumps and take the beating from him and make him look like $1 million. And so I jumped off the top, and he catches me with the spear, and when I took the bump, and I get back to the back, and Laurinaitis was like, oh, what are you taking that stupid bump for? You can get hurt. I'm like, because I got to make him look good.
I'm trying to impress you, sir.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That too, right?
it's like I got to make myself look good by taking some stupid bump. So at least he's looking good, and I'm looking good by getting beat.
Yeah.
And I seen the writing on the wall then. And then whenever Cornette's mom passed away, that's when I got the notice. So calls me up, got some bad news, and like Steve Bradley had just got released, and he was a good worker. And I knew when Steve got released, I was like, okay, all right, you guys are cutting people back. And then I got the phone call, and like, oh, anything we can do, to help you out and get you, just let us know. Did nothing. I mean, that's when I went to TNA, called, let me know right then. And then TNA thing bombed, but then Puerto Rico came about.
But while you were in Puerto Rico, were you like, I think there's a run for me on TV eventually, and this will lead to it or something like that?
Yeah, actually, I thought I did. I sent the video, and Tommy Dreamer was like, man, it was great. And I got to try out when they did the pay-per-view down there. And I went to it, sitting there waiting, and they said they were having that's when they did their elimination chamber, and they were having problems raising and lowering the cage. And I never got to get in the ring. So that never comes to that.
That was your tryout.
But yeah. But
because you came to a point, in the past couple of days or whatever, and you're like, well, it's not like I'm going anywhere, and like,
it seems like guys that get heat get the attention, and you just sit back. It's like, but when I was down there, I got sit there and did the bit, and
we're in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, so I didn't get in the ring, get looked at. So then I came home, ironically, for a Star Wars convention,
of course.
And but I went down to Louisville, and Tom Pritchard was there, and I asked Tom, I go about getting a job, and he goes, well, I'll be honest with you. Every time when your name got brought up, they said there was nothing they could think of for you. I'm like, they couldn't ask. I mean, all right, I can give them a ton of ideas.
Yeah,
and he's like, well, they just said they didn't see anything in you. And I was like, all right.
And this was while you were, he's saying while you were under contract?
No, while I was under contract, that was their reasoning. They didn't ever bring me up.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I'll send you something. So this is where the infamous porno tape came.
Yeah, and which is, I think is...
And
the funny, I'm almost upset you just said you gave away the punchline almost, but we'll go with it.
All right, so Pritchard, they told me this. I get back down there, and there was a porno tape at the house, and you never.
Who, you?
Oh, yeah.
You watching porn?
It wasn't my tape. I lived across the street.
Oh, okay.
This is where the other boys lived.
Sure, yeah.
Someone had left it there.
Can I borrow that?
So I took it over. I took it and I started editing it, but you never see the guy's face. And I would put 10 seconds of the porno, 10 seconds of my match, 10 seconds of the porno, but it's back and forth so you get until you come to the finish, and then
literally,
Well, then the finish is the match is 1, 2, 3, and then the guy is jerking off in her face. So I told Bushwhacker, I'm going to send this to him, and he's like, mate, are you stupid? You'll never get hired. I'm like, I'm not hired anyways. It's either someone's going to watch this and they're going to laugh so hard thinking this is great, I'm going to give him a job, or they're going to be like, he's never getting a job.
Right.
So either way, I don't have a job.
You'll go down in infamy either way if somebody watches it.
So I sent it. I put it marked to Stephanie. So I'm thinking someone's going to call me and say something.
Yeah.
I never hear a word from anybody. So years down the line, I see Tom again. I'm like, Tom, I just wondered. I know no one's seen it, because if they did, when they seen me, something would have been said.
Yeah.
And I told him about it, and he popped. And he's like, that's great. I wish I would have seen it.
Yeah.
And
but it goes to say something. A guy who's put in his time, has done his work at that point, like 20 years in wrestling or whatever, maybe 15 years all around, and that's what they think of tapes that they get, Can't be bothered.
Yeah, well, you know whether they're watching stuff or not.
Yeah.
So
you got yourself an answer.
Yeah. Then this is where, like, while I was in Puerto Rico, I mean, it gets depressing. You get down there and you're around the guys, but you're in your own little clique. You're with your American groups. It's like you got no car down there unless you rent one, and you're lucky if they let you borrow the company car. And
You're not making rent car money though, right? Maybe you are.
I was making decent
You were
money.
doing
I
okay.
mean, free place to stay.
Yeah, but I always feel like whenever you're somewhere that's not, and this is how, and you tell me how you work, because maybe we're totally different paths. Like whenever I'm somewhere where it's not like home, and for you it's Indianapolis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's always like it's just like I don't want to spend any money. I want to be as cheap as possible, so then I can bring that money back to my house. Like, like when I'm in Japan, I don't want to spend any money. When I was in England, I just want to like kind of hoard it all and then I'll spend it on back in Chicago or your place, Indianapolis. But maybe you're different. I don't know.
I was having a ball. I mean,
you weren't afraid. Were you not afraid to spend some money here and there?
I mean, I wasn't like going crazy, but it gets to the point where you're just stuck and you don't get to go anywhere. Then when you get out, it's like, well, have some fun. I mean, you see stuff you wanted to get and you get it. But
it's the Puerto Rican Star Wars material.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I buy some of the stuff, then I got to ship it home. but I mean, and I always got accused. I mean, a lot of people think I'm like a big drug addict. They think I'm high all the time or I'm in a bad mood. I've never smoked weed, and I mean, I was hooked on Somas, and I don't ever deny it.
Yeah.
And it was right down the road. Go to the pharmacy and get it, and I was bad on them, and
that was all Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah, I mean, and before that, I mean, I wasn't into any drugs, but other than Somas, that was all I did, and it was a sleeping problem, and lower back, my back was messed up, so I mean, I'd take that to help me sleep, but then it got out of control, and I remember Kenny Bowen, because I don't know if it's just me, but you know how you get your friends in the business, but when they make it, it's like they always talk to you, but when they make it, no one wants to talk to you, or it's like no, you don't ever get any phone calls.
Yeah.
So I'm down there and I'll be calling guys that I thought were my friends,
right?
And you don't ever get any phone calls, and all these guys are getting called up, and I'm like, hey, you guys forget everything. And I remember Bowen, I called him, I just seen what was up, never returns a phone call. And it was about 3 a.m.
Wait, because Kenny Bowen became a huge star on OVW TV?
No, I just
But I'm saying he wouldn't call you back because.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just call guys up and say, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
And your friends. I never had a problem with Kenny. I mean, Kenny, I always liked him.
Sure,
but
he's a character, that Kenny Bowen.
And he calls me. It was like 2, 3 a.m. and I still remember this. And because I was having problems sleeping, and I took some Somas and went to sleep, and as soon as I finally going in a good deep sleep, where I'm thinking, because I was having problems sleeping for a few days, so I got that, and I'm finally getting ready to doze off. Kenny calls me up, and I answered my phone, and he's there talking to me. He goes, I don't know what you've done, but you have all kinds of heat. I'm like, what have I done? And he's talking about I'm buried. I'm like, huh? Then he got really, I was like, man. Your one dream, you're sitting there, now you're finding like you're getting buried and you haven't done anything. And I mean, good thing. I mean, lucky I didn't OD. I used to think like, man, because I always have a time.
Well, what was that stem to? Not the porno, unfortunately.
No, I don't know.
So just Kenny Bowen calls you up.
Yeah, and just tells me how I've like blackballed, and I'm like, I haven't done anything.
Are you thinking that it's like in that circle? Because like, right, like, I mean, I guess that evolution circle was like your circle of, I don't want to say friends, but that was who was around it when you were around, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I ever done anything, like, I have no idea what it was. But then later on, I mean, and this is after the porno and all that I sent, and I come home and I was talking to Laurinaitis, and I'm like, do I have heat? And he's like, no.
But he'll never tell you.
But yeah,
he'll lie right to your face with a smile. Yeah.
So I ended up getting to try out again, and this is when I really seen the writing on the wall. How even if I was there, I mean, I would probably be miserable, and probably would wind up dead anyways.
Is this post that Puerto Rico thing? Or
yeah, this is after Puerto Rico. This was 2010.
Okay.
I got a tryout, and I went there. And I'd torn my meniscus. I had torn both knees. And so I'm trying to work, hardly being able to walk. Got my knees wrapped up, and I'm getting there. And I just did the Flashmania gimmick and just the Hogan bull. And but I did it and Laurinaitis after it was over with. Doesn't say anything to me. And I did Raw where I was the waiter.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it's funny because if you watch it, you hear people behind Lawler while it's on. You hear it's Flash.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, great. But I got a payday.
Right.
And the next day, we were in, I think it was like Dayton or something. And Laurinaitis comes up to me and goes, "Oh, you wanted this tryout, and you give you this tryout and all this stuff for you, and you go out and then do this Hulk Hogan bullshit." I'm like, I watched all these guys do their stuff, and it was the same thing. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm not going to remember any of these guys that just came through here and done this. It was like watching like American Idol or something. And when they did the promo, it was, "Oh, my name's so-and-so, I wanted to be a wrestler." All this, like, really? Whatever happened to a wrestling promo? Mm-hmm. It was just telling them about yourself. I could go out there and say, "Yeah, I'm so-and-so. I've been wanting to be a pro wrestler, blah, blah, blah." And same generic thing.
Sure.
It was like, I gave you a character or some bull. I mean, and I did the best I could in the ring. I mean, you can only do so much, and you can hardly walk. And that was it.
And that's where it came to the point.
That's when I realized, like, fuck you anyways. I mean, really, coming from a guy who couldn't ride a skateboard, he held a flag and had the mullet, your brother's road warrior animal. If it weren't for him, you probably wouldn't have a job anyplace anyways, and Baba's wife liked you. So you were lucky.
Yeah, but you look on the opposite side of it, it's like, fuck, man. That guy really weaseled his way into something after riding a skateboard, like everything you list, like he did. He was some kind of power mover or some kind of positioner, and I who knows if he can sleep at night because of the stuff he did, But fuck, man, it's pretty impressive that he snaked his way into all that position where he can tell everybody, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Okay, I'll hire you, I guess.
Well, and then now, like I said, now I'm in the position where I could care less if Vince hired me, so fuck you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Fair enough. Let's talk about that. Let's talk.
And this is where, and I give CM Punk all the credit in the world. He has all my respect.
The man.
He's the man for sitting there and saying that, because to walk away and sit there and be like, "Screw you guys," because I'm a wrestler. It's on the marquee. It's still pro wrestling, sports entertainment. Yeah, it's still the same. And for him to walk away, yet I still think it's all the work.
You really look at you.
And I know you guys are really tight.
You want to believe, huh?
And I still think because of all the talk with him and Austin, I still think this is all set up for WrestleMania next year.
Next year.
I could be wrong. Who knows?
Well, spoiler, I think you're dead wrong, but that might be part of the plan.
But it
might be part of the plan to have you on to say this theory.
If I'm wrong, and he has just said, "Screw you guys," all the respect in the world, because to me, he's my hero now.
Look at that. I think he's a lot of people's heroes, myself included. Let's talk about your journey into all of it, because I want to talk about Steve Bradley a little bit, so hopefully we can get into that, because you mentioned it. Were you friends with Steve Bradley?
A little bit. I mean, I've known him. I mean, Cornette would bring him up whenever he was down in Power Pro, and then they sent him to Puerto Rico, and they forgot they had him down there.
I mean, that was like the I guess the story, and you got to understand that I was a high schooler, 94 to 98, and those were the years where you heard about I heard about yourself.
Jeez, now you're making me really feel like 94 to 98.
Hey, you got a 92, but you got to understand. So that was when you were really hitting your stride. So for me, I know the Flash Flanagans and I know the Steve Bradleys, and that was, especially at that time, probably just like you, when you were ready to break in. I assume 14 to 18, right? Were you? I know you were a super fan. So
I was in grade school, and I
wanted to break in early, but when you're 14, it's I'm kind of a man. I've got some pubes. Maybe I can be a wrestler.
No, I was scrawny. This is. I mean, all through school, grade school, I'm gonna be a pro wrestler. And I'd bring the pictures to show my friends when I go to the shows. Middle school, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. It's cool. My girlfriend had just seen a book that I wrote when I did a little thing in
an essay or whatever in
school. But we made our own little bitty booklet, and it was the book of pro wrestling, my journey into pro wrestling. And she laughed so hard.
How old were you when you wrote it? 7?
I was in the 7th grade.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there talking about how I'm going to be this big pro wrestler.
You were the same way in school. Every project was about wrestling, right?
Oh, everything.
Yeah, of course.
And I had all the chores and stuff, and I'd see these guys. And then my aunt worked at the motel here in Indianapolis, and she said they'd come here after the shows, and I'd go down there. And I met everyone. And I met Savage and Liz, and you always hear the story about Savage, how paranoid he was. And the first time I met him, got the picture with him, and Liz has her head down. And then so I get the picture, and I'm like, oh, man, I wish you would have looked up. So next time I come here, there they are. And, can I get a picture with you guys again? And Lanny was coming there. He was right behind him. And I go, can I get a picture of both of you together? And he's like, no. I was like,
just me, Liz, head down.
No. Well, Liz, and they're like, Liz, last time she had her head down, can she come in there? And he's got this look on his face, and he's kind of mad. And the Lanny thing was, WWF not want you guys taking picture together. He's like, no, because I said so. And we're like, and here I am. I'm dressed up like Macho Man. I got the sunglasses, the headband, the shirt, and one of those pictures I keep hid.
I love to see it.
But it's funny, and so I got a picture with him, and Hogan, and when I met Hogan, Brutus comes in, checks in, comes back out. Yeah, she's in this room. Okay, cool.
But for me, you were like, you were always like this USWA Memphis guy, but you were a Midwesterner. You weren't from that area.
No,
right?
I started out here in Indy, and when I was in high school, a buddy of mine said there was a wrestling ring in this building, and I kept driving by the building. I look in the window, and I seen the ring, and I'm marking out.
Obsessed, right?
Oh, because I mean, my first experience the first time I was ever in the ring, I was like 16. And I got to get in the WCW ring. And that was just...
How and why?
The show was over with. I'm like, hey, can I get my picture in the ring? And the security guy was like, yeah, hurry up real quick. And I jumped in there. I pumped up.
The greatest moment ever.
It was great, yeah. And then
Wait, hold on. Isn't that weird that, like, your memory of that memory, like, probably gets you really giddy and excited, yet you, like, have wrestled in WWE and, like, all over the world, and, like, it's like, that's wrestling. But, like, thinking of that memory of being able to get into that when you were 16 and that first time you could like get into that WCW ring.
Yeah, well, I kept going to the place, and I was going to break into the building. I was going to take the ring down and steal it.
I love it.
But
when wrestling fan meets thuggery,
because I was trying to find a place where I could go to train, and the magazine had the bit for the Heart Foundation for the dungeon bit, the Heart. It's in Pro Wrestling Illustrated. It's like I can't remember what they called it. But then I talked to Bill Anderson. I was gonna go out to San Bernardino, and first it was Red Bastien, and that's when he told me about Bill Anderson, and I still have all this stuff and I found all this stuff packed up in a package. I still have everything from when I was trying to get started, and it's all the same thing, getting an education and all this. But I met Sting, and I told him I was gonna be a pro wrestler. And he's like, well, you better think about it, kid. And at the time, I'm thinking...
He's like, it's easy as shit. Come on in.
No, at the time, I'm thinking, think about it. What do you mean? I ain't going to think about this. This is my dream. And then you get into it, and then when you get into it, and then you realize all the backstabbing, cutthroat, and then it's like, now I know what he means. If he would have just sat there for a little bit and said, hey, this is how it is. And there's guys up there in WWE right now, and then they told me, it's like, time back when in Louisville, because we all pushed for each other. Mm-hmm. It was like, okay, let's see what we can do. And I'm going to, if you make it, help me out, get me up there. We all work together.
And this is like while you were in developmental.
Yeah. Like, so we all busted our butt, hoping if you make it, I'll help you out. I make it, I'm going to try to get you in. And so we have someone to work with. But then they said, I got up there. I never really seen anything. It was until I started getting a push. Then when I started getting a push, that's when you see all the backstabbing and cutthroat.
When you got a push?
No, that's whenever some of the guys that are up there, when they were telling me about it. And
got it. So you went up there for the couple shows and you didn't see anything.
I didn't see some of the guys. No, I mean, I'd heard. I mean, you hear about it,
of course,
but I'd never seen it.
Yeah,
and the same with this. What he said.
It's funny because I was, a low tier guy there, and us low tier guys, we just all hang out and have fun. It'd be like, it'd be a blast. But I guess when that low tier guy then gets that push, that's when they start falling.
Yeah,
away.
It's like the same thing. You get in the ring. Oh, I'm gonna do this spot, and oh, you screw it up, so it makes him look bad, but you don't look bad because you're doing the move, just making it awkward for him, so he looks bad doing it. Like just like being in position.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to go to fly off the top rope, and you're not there, and now I just look like an idiot because I just jumped out there and no one's there. And as I tell guys now, they'll look at me and like, oh, why don't you do any of that stuff like you used to do? I'm like, well, really? You don't know where to be at in the ring.
Yeah.
You get in the ring with someone, it's like, all right, now this guy watches all these video games, wants to do these moves. You don't know what you're doing to begin with because when you get in the ring, you don't know where you're at.
But you used to be one of those guys because when I started training, I was training with Adam Pierce. He was kind of helping us around, and he'd always. I remember he told me a story of like Flash Flanagan drop kicking off the top rope in a parking lot.
Oh,
to the ground.
Yeah, that was in a
gravel. Like I think taking a back bump maybe.
No, this was my dumb bright idea that I thought would be pretty cool. This was in a. I still remember this. It was Danny Dominion and Ace Steel.
Okay.
It was in
my trainers.
It was like Wasu. It was in Wisconsin, and it was a fair show for Windy City Wrestling, and it was Sam. It was like
those guys trained me, right?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
My trainers.
Well,
I just want to put it all in context here.
They're good guys.
Oh, you can shit talk them all you want. Like
I always liked them. They were good. And it was like you're trying to get just trying to get a break. And I told him, Steve Boz was my partner. And we did this thing where we went to the floor, and I went to the top rope, and I threw a drop kick to the floor. And I'm thinking, okay, how hard is it going? I've jumped off the roof from the house and stuff. And it's like something, but there's the gravel and stuff. So when I hit him, I came down and hit my head on the floor, on the ground, and gravel on my head and my arm. And I've got everything spinning around, all these colors. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm loopy. And I can't remember who I hit with the drop kick, but the other one came and hit me from behind. And I kind of got my senses back. And I got back in the ring. I tagged out real quick so I could really figure out where I'm at. And that was a joke. I mean, like, cool move.
Yeah. But you were doing that shit.
Yeah, I was doing.
And do you think that's what like got you? I guess like that early break was that lightweight tournament on television. Is it doing that kind of stuff and were you trying to be that innovative lightweight guy?
I mean, I back then. It wasn't like you don't have the internet and watch all this stuff, so you get tape trading and stuff. And I would see these guys would come to the show and they had these Japanese matches, and I'm watching Benoit and Owen Hart and Jushin Liger and Suzuki,
Great
Sasuke,
Sasuke,
whatever.
That guy.
My English and my Spanglish and all the other stuff. And my English isn't even as good as my Spanish sometimes. So, but I mean, watching all these guys, thinking, man, I'm going to do this stuff. And this was when Sabu was doing his stuff. And so I'm going to be trying to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
But and then you try to sit there and like, what can I do so stand out above all this? And I figured I'd try this move, and I did it one time. That was enough.
Did Sabu so in that locker room, I guess you were like kind of young, but still like maybe ready to, was he like that influential? I mean, you hear stories of how influential he was on the indies, like trying to change into style a little bit. And
Sabu was great. I mean, all my experiences with him, like because whenever we were running our show, we ran shows up here in Indianapolis every Thursday night.
Who's we?
Mike Samples. First, it started out Jeff Cohen, he was a photographer, and he'd go down to Memphis and Louisville and do the stuff. And then him and Burt Prentice started Championship Wrestling from America, or Championship Wrestling from Indiana. But they'd run 10 to 1.
Indiana, America.
It had changed. It was CWI, CWA, and all that stuff. But wrestling's wrestling.
Yeah.
So they were running it, and I guess Mike Samples he got in there and weaseled his way in, cutting Bert's throat. And Bert, we had a good sponsor, a Superstar Junior Car, and yeah, he owned Jack's Pizzas. He had some chains of Jack Pizzas, but I mean he was the money man, and he would tell you all these stories, and he knew they were phony as could be. But he had an extra in Thunder in Paradise. In one of the wedding scenes, he's in the crowd while they're walking by to get married.
And that's his claim to fame?
But his claim was him and Hulk Hogan were tight.
Oh, okay.
They were buddies.
I thought he was just bragging about being an extra in the wedding.
No. Hogan had called him and got him in this movie. And there's like, you're an extra. I mean, but he's the money man. So I listened to his stories.
Of course.
And I mean, so you knew he was full of it. And he idolized Elvis. So he tried to take all the drugs Elvis took. And ironically, he died the same day Elvis had died.
Hey, like he would have wanted.
And he had a heart attack, but in his bed, not on the toilet. And
I heard you're trying to go out the same way that the Darth Vader goes out.
If I can only make the money.
Okay.
Well, but I mean, he put the money in, invested in it. And Mike would bring Sabu, and they brought Van Dam, Mike Awesome, Blue Meanie before he was Blue Meanie. And we had all these guys coming in. Tracy Smothers and Ricky Morton. That's how I got through with Cornette. Was Tracy and Ricky? They kept telling him about me, and that's how I got hooked up with Smoky Mountain. But I mean, with the Junior would invest all this money, and we come down and with Sabu, the fans wanted to see me and Sabu. Sabu's first night, they told him, "Oh, he's not going to be able to make it." But then he did the run-in, and he jumped us, and they were hot. He got near the crowd, and the crowd was sitting pretty close. They maced him, and his first night in, he got maced. We had the crowd, they were wild. They would always. There was one lady, I'd always see her at the WWF shows when I was a kid, and I didn't know her daughter had married Bruiser's son, and they were there, and they started showing up, and they hated Vic the Bruiser. He's got a gash on his arm because we did the bit where Vic was Dick's illegitimate son.
Yeah.
That he raped his mom in the basement of Little Gardens, and they hated him. They bring hairspray and shoot flames out at him while he's getting ringside. But with Junior, he invested the money, and we had our big show. We packed this place. We went from the small building, and we went to a bigger building on Fountain Square. And Mike goes out there and goes, "I want to thank Bill Shirk, who was the TV station that we were on, but Junior was still putting the money. I want to thank Bill Shirk for making all this possible."
Hey.
And wanted to punish Junior and had him sitting behind the ring announcer's table ringing the bell.
Even though this guy's paying for everything.
This guy's paying for everything.
And you want to butter where your bread's buttered. Is that right? Something like that?
And looked over and you see the writing on the wall. It's done. And we had a good thing going. And every Thursday night we were having...
And what? Because Michael Samples wanted to show his dominance? Is that like a power move?
And he would always sit there and always... he would tell you, be honest, knowing that he's going to cut your throat too, because he would always take cheap shots at you in the ring. He would do the clothesline, and whenever it got to the point where I got tired of getting hit in the face, so whenever he'd throw a clothesline, I would jump up. As soon as I just jump in the air and let him hit me, or it would look terrible.
Yeah.
And I knew what he was doing. I mean, he wasn't stupid. He ain't gonna sit there and clothesline me in the face. I mean, say, "Oh, it was an accident."
Right.
Yeah, whatever.
That's some old timer stuff, man.
Yeah.
So you had that Thursday night gig, and they were bringing in all those cool guys, but so it just seems like a lot of those guys were doing a loop, even though they. When I say the Memphis territory, and we'll talk about how you closed down Smoky Mountain here in a second, but there was work every like 5 days a week. Do you think?
Yeah.
Were you wrestling full time at a young age?
I made more money doing better for myself before I ever signed my WWE, the developmental deal.
As an independent wrestler, but early 90s independent wrestling, right? Mid-90s.
Early mid-90s.
Okay.
I was wrestling, not when I first started, but say from 94 to 99, before I ever signed my deal, I was wrestling 5 to 7 nights a week. I was wrestling almost every night somewhere.
Just not with one specific company, just random shots.
Just here or there.
Everyone's running a show.
And just finding work. Bert was running all kinds of stuff. Then I had Danny's. And so then I signed, and it was like, as soon as I signed my developmental deal,
all that, and it's like and because it's weird, and I feel the same way. It's because you work so long to build these relationships with people and make contacts, and then you sign that deal, and it's like it all goes away. You're on it, and then you're supposed to go up and make a shitload of money, but you don't.
It was like it was almost like I was doing all these indie scenes. I was going to the East Coast working for Carluzzo and Blaine DeSantis was running the Pennsylvania Championship Wrestling, and then Jim Kettner, and I was working for all these guys. But then I signed, and then I wouldn't really do. I was just working.
The buzz
there.
just goes like right away.
Well,
leaves.
Well, then when I went to Puerto Rico, then it was like really boom done because you're gone when you're down there. You don't get any exposure, and stuff I done down there, I'm happy with the stuff I done down there. The stuff I did down there, I think is better than the stuff I ever did here.
Yeah,
and
it's hard because it's right. Like maybe it's remembered in Puerto Rico, but it's just not. And even today, like the stuff in Puerto Rico, like the American indie scene, they don't champion it really, and it really doesn't. It's almost like I guess like a hidden thing, like because like if you see now like all these New Japan guys, it's really getting a nice buzz in America, but Puerto Rico doesn't really doesn't get anything.
Well,
it sucks really.
Yeah, because this.
You think about all the guys, Chet the Jet, and especially I'm just thinking of those guys, and even Bison, and it never really translated to
they
American
dropped the ball
indies.
on Bison. Bison was so good,
of course.
And I look back, and I think all the guys I went through there, I was like, man, and everyone that went
Casey,
down, all the guys
James.
went down. I'll tell you some funny Casey stuff here too. I got all these guys. There's so many funny stories about these guys when we were down in Puerto Rico, because back to man. You have to go through a thing. I can tell you when I started with Victor, like when I first met Victor with that WWE thing, you hear the stories about him, but then you don't really know. When we were at the bar, Victor kept buying me drinks, and I was like, okay, buy me drinks. And then
I'll take a free drink.
Yeah, so he's like, let's go back to the room, see what we can do about further your career, because I knew he had Japan and all that, and I knew the Mexico bit. So we're sitting there.
So you go back, like, oh, you got contracts there?
No, I'm just thinking, I figured I'd talk to him.
Yeah.
Because I don't know him.
Right.
So we're sitting there, and S.A. Rios was laying on the bed. Throw him under the bus. He goes over, smacks him on the ass. He goes, that's my bitch. I'm thinking, okay. So we're sitting there talking. He goes, so what do you think we can do to further your career? I'm like, give me a contract. And he puts his hand on my leg, and if a light bulb could ever pop on the top of someone's head, you could see it right there on my head because I sobered up right like that. And I'm like, this guy's trying to fuck me.
Yeah, I love the idea that you're like, he asked that question, you're like, I don't know, maybe have better matches, maybe work harder, maybe get in the gym. And it's
But
like, he just wants to see your wiener.
Once he put his hand on my leg, it's like, boomed. I was like, oh my God, all these stories are true. I'm getting out of here.
And S.A. Rios becomes a big star on Shotgun Saturday Night,
But it was still cool because he booked me in Mexico. And at the time, though, when I knew what I was going to be making, I was making that amount of money on the weekends working for Carluzzo and other stuff, just on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
And I was going to make that in a week. I was like, well. So I told him, I can't do it. And he goes, I've already got your plane ticket. I'm like, well, I'm making that much money on these nights. I can't do that for a week and be gone. I make more money doing the indie scenes here. So I should have went, but my whole thing was I don't speak Spanish, and I don't want to go down to Monterey and be stuck with the Mexicans, and especially someone now I know wants to screw me and be stuck there. So I didn't go and would never deal with me. Then later on, Dutch booked me down there, and Victor was always cool with me. I mean, he would say stuff, but he never tried anything.
Gotcha.
So Victor was always good to me. There's plenty of times I gave him a reason to fire me. He never did. He kept me around.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there's like, I recommend people like hit up your Facebook, and like there's always some awesome pictures of like you doing crazy shit down there in Puerto Rico too, and jumping off balconies.
The first year I was there, I mean, I was in Savio's group, but they never really did a whole lot with me. First few matches, then you always have to stay dressed to go in the end and get the chair shot from Banderas, which was terrible. I mean, it sucked because I got to the point where I was like, hit me in the head. I don't want to take a shot to the back because you're killing me. I'll protect myself the best I can. You can hit me in the head all you want. Cause still, the whole thing of the wellness policy and the concussions, hit me in the head because it beats getting a real job any day of the week.
Wow.
So I'll protect myself a little bit.
Yeah.
And so Dutch had left to go to TNA, And I got put in, they asked me, because I'd been around for a little while, if I wanted to help out, that Victor was going to see what I could do with helping with finishes and stuff for TV. I'm like, all right. So the whole bit with, I did the fall off the balcony down there, and that was all by a fluke accident. I remember we were sitting there, and the whole thing was with, when we turned on Banderas, it was going to be starting off with, he comes back and goes through Miguel and Castillo and then me to get to Savio. But then they said, we're going to start off beating me. And I was like, man, I'm trying to make a name for myself. And I love Miguel and Savio and all them guys. I'm not knocking them. But at the time, Miguel he had back problems. But these guys, they did their thing. But I wanted to go out there and tear the house down.
Right. And they've been around forever.
Yeah, and so when I'm getting started off with, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to make sure that you guys have to follow what I do.
Right.
And I'd come up with this thing where we were going to fight to the second floor, and I don't know if you've ever seen it. And Ricky would tease it, and I had the table set up, and Ricky's going to throw me off the balcony, and I go through the table. Well, I missed the table. Yeah. Knocked myself, landed on my head, and knocked myself out. They thought I was dead, and they did Ricky pins me, comes up, Savio swings a bat, hits him in the face and breaks his nose. He had a big gash. And they're checking on me, and I'm out. They do the bit in the ring. Well, I finally come to, and I go to the back. I'm walking up the stairs. I see Ricky sitting on the floor. They're checking on him. Blood's all over his face. I can see the gash. And I walk in the room, and because there was 2 rooms where we could dress in, I walk in there, and I go, see there, I told you guys I was a main eventer. And Savio's like, get ready to go to the hospital. I go, why? I'm fine. He's like, where you at? I go, Indianapolis? He goes, you're in Puerto Rico. Get ready to go to the hospital. And I go, how'd that look on with the table? And Luke was like, mate, you missed the fucking table. I'm like, no, because I'm thinking Ricky, because the whole thing was I go through the table, Ricky was going to fly off and do the splash, and why I ever thought of Ricky jumping off the top of on the balcony and coming through after I've already went through the table and doing the splash.
Tables, yeah.
Like, duh.
Do you think that made you a little bit though?
That was what made me in Puerto Rico. I mean, I got famous. They started calling me the Hombre de Goma, which I had no idea what it ever meant. Then when I found out it meant the Rubber Man, I was like,
oh God.
I was like, which they said was cool.
Right, I get it.
But to me, I'm thinking, that's the lamest nickname you could give anyone.
Yeah, I guess, but sounds pretty crazy. Sounds pretty crazy, I guess, if I figure out the meaning behind it.
If you don't know, because I bounced off the floor, it's like a rubber
you just flopped
ball.
Right through it. Yeah.
But
oh God.
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, that's what I'm getting. But and it all the Foley bump off the cage. I've seen that. I was like, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
Because I remember the drop kick to the floor. I was like, well, okay, I don't know.
Oh, that's what makes you famous? All right, I'm in.
Well, I figured, okay, I mean, this will be a cool thing. I'll get myself over. And it worked. Then I got to where I was doing all these hardcore matches, and it's like, God. I mean, but the thing with the hardcore matches, I try to be different. All these guys want to go out there, weapon. And I try to at least incorporate things. They have not the garbage can, but the grocery cart. You bring the weapons out. So I try to come up with spots where take the backdrop out of the ring and land in the grocery cart, where it wasn't just hitting someone with something. It was creative, where you're doing something and come up and there's the weapon in your hand and hit it. And I got to doing all this stuff, and get to the point where I would have to get a shot at the show because they have the EMTs there, and they'd give me some for the inflammation, and they'd tell me, take a Soma and a Vicodin, and you get the shot so you loosen you up so you can move. Because I couldn't move.
Yeah. I was. But that's when shit starts going down.
And I was getting crippled.
Yeah.
So I'd come up with the Slashmania thing. So and it was the whole Hogan bit.
Yeah.
And it all became like a rib because they wanted me to start putting guys over that they didn't believe in. And I'm like, all right, if all this stuff I've done to kill myself, and this is how I'm going to get paid back.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. So I started doing the Hulk Hogan stuff. I took the shirt and I'd take a Sharpie and I wrote Slashmania and Slasher and and I got tear it off. But it was so I could save my body.
Right.
Until doing a hardcore match meant something. And so finally, when I would do a bit, the guy, Michael Judas, was stabbing me with a cross. I get colored, and they carry me out in the stretcher. I'm like, okay, now's the time. Now I'll start doing the hardcore stuff again, and it'll be bigger. And I screwed up, and they found, and it was 3 a.m, and I was in the office, and I went down when they were doing the TV, we'd go down and get on the internet, and I was getting ready to go to sleep, and the guy comes, hey, we can go down and get in the office. And I already took a few Somas, and I got down in the office, and boom, they kicked in. And I went to the Soma shakes and landed on the floor, passed out. But they closed the door on me, and lo and behold, Savio Miguel show up at the office at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there I am with the Soma shakes, laying there, passed out. And I thanked them, because the best thing, them sending me home.
That's when you got sent home.
It saved my life. Saved my life, and it was like I got cleaned up after that. So, I mean, I know last time when they bring me down, I apologized because there was a lot of times they should have fired me for being somaed up, and it was what it was. I couldn't. It was there, and I couldn't help it because I was hooked, and it wasn't like I couldn't. It was so available, and I needed to get away from it. So when they sent me home, I got away from it, and boom.
And you're alive, thankfully.
Yeah.
As we leave, do you want to quickly tell me how you closed down Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
Cornette called me up, his big Super Bowl show. He had Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, all these guys there. He calls me up. This is like 3 days before the show. He goes, hey, I got the show. I was like, want to know if you'd be interested in coming and working. I'm like, yeah, this is my break. And I went there, worked with the Headbangers, and after the match,
who'd you tag with? Chris
Michaels.
Okay.
And after the match, that was good. So I'd like to keep using you. Said when there's a spot, I'll get back with you. And I just kept calling him. He used me periodically for a few months. Then I started full time in November, and then at the Thanksgiving, I can't remember what his big Thanksgiving weekend shows were called, but I did the first 3 shows, and the last show I was off, and that's when he told everyone that it was closing down. And then I get a phone call saying that they heard Smoky Mountain was closed. And I'm like, huh? And then Cornette finally called me and told me that they were shutting down. I was like, great. Here's my big break. I was kind of disappointed, but then that's when I ended up working for Memphis. And I was with Memphis when they closed down too, a year and a half later. And then, like I said, I signed with Vince, and that was the downfall of my career. But then, I got to go to Puerto Rico, and I resurrected what down there. It was, like you said, down there it was better. Then I came back to the States, and it was everything I'd done. It was like, even like this, the one thing that does upset me is at OVW, everything I did down there, busting my butt, I'm not even acknowledged there. As if you look, as like you were there. You were there.
Yeah, for a
you know
year.
how they get the pictures on the wall of everyone that's been through there. I'm not on any of that.
Right.
I'm not. It's like I'm not even. Haven't even been there.
It's like a weird curse of Puerto Rico, though. I swear, it's just it doesn't get any press for any because it's an American kind of territory, but it's not, because I think it's all. Maybe Mexico is where we're known. I don't even know.
Well, just what I had done in OVW.
Yeah.
It's I was one of the original guys there,
right?
And I don't know what it is, but
Well, you're still doing it though, right?
Still working.
And, where do people get a hold of you and stuff?
Yeah.
Do they?
Either call me or send me, Facebook me, or
okay.
I'm not. I laughed when you talked about Buddy Landell.
Yeah.
The Twitter. I couldn't tell you. I don't even know what a hashtag.
Oh,
the
hashtag.
Hashtag is a number sign.
You're a young kid too, man.
Yeah.
You're not like that.
I hate social media. I hate it.
Well, you got to embrace it, man. You're on here. It's the first step.
This is actually
step one.
The first thing I've done. I have Facebook, and I sit there, and I don't even like that. I get on there and I'll talk to old friends.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're wondering, am I talking to this guy? Because there are so many people. It's like, get a life.
Right.
If you're not him, there's someone on Facebook now. It's got a Facebook page. It's me. And like, really?
As you, huh?
I'm flattered that you want to have a Facebook page thinking you're me.
Yeah.
But really?
I got a couple of me's out there too, sadly.
I can think of a lot of other people I'd rather be.
Thank you very much. Cool, man. I appreciate you coming on.
I had fun.
All right, thanks, bud.
All right, Flash, he's on Facebook and he's still out there. Hopefully you see him on a show. Say hello to him. Say hello, man. Us wrestlers, we need that love. That's what we thrive on. Just a little love from our fans, from people who like wrestling. Flash has been at it a long time. Thank you, by the way, buddy. Thank you. He hit me up and told me how much fun he had doing it. Well, I had a blast doing it with you, man. All right, before we get out of here, that sounded weird, right? Not like that. You know what I'm saying. All right, before we get out of here, let's get into some plugs and
Upcoming events.
all right, the best way that you can support ColtMerch.com and DigitalColt.com. I got a Twitter and Instagram at Colt Cabana. I got a very public email, ColtWrestling@gmail.com. My website, ColtCabana.com. I got a snail mail, P.O. Box. Send me something cool. My friend Paul Lazenby from Vancouver, who is the man, sent me some sweet MMA swag, man. I appreciate that. Also, John, just a random guy, John, sent me the 1997 Barely Legal original ECW program. Pretty awesome. It should be in your collection, but fucking now it's in mine, buddy. I appreciate that. Facebook/AOW Podcast and Colt Cabana. Upcoming Friday, March 13th, Houston, Texas, LoneStarWrestling.com. Saturday, March 14th, Baltimore, Maryland, MarylandWrestling.com. Sunday, March 15th, Denver, Colorado, Facebook/Lucha Libre Laughs. Saturday and Sunday, March 21st and 22nd, Cardiff, Wales, Film and Comic-Con Cardiff.com. WrestleMania weekend, I will be all over the place doing some comedy on Friday night, but mainly Friday, Saturday, and Saturday, 3 different sessions, WrestleCon.com. Friday, April 3rd, Yeovil, England, Facebook/Ultimate Pro Wrestling. Saturday, April 4th, Matt Classic will be in Portsmouth, and Sunday, April 5th, Matt Classic will be in Broxburn, England, RevolutionProWrestling.com. Thursday, April 9th, my comedy show. Got some fun guests. Chicago, Illinois. It's a tenor. ColtCabana.com. Come see me. I want to make sure that this thing does well. Otherwise, I won't be doing any more of them. Friday, April 10th, Berwyn, Illinois, AAWrestling.com. And Saturday, April 11th, LaSalle, Illinois, DreamWaveWrestling.com. You should make a whole weekend of it. I'm going to make a weekend of finishing this podcast and then bring it to you next week because we are done. I'm done. Thank you to you at home for listening. Thanks to Flash Flanagan for being on the show. He's a great dude. Thanks to Kid Guy Jeff and Stu Stone. Thanks to Kid Russell, Matt Jenkins on the music, Dane Miller on the tech. We got some sponsors, highspots.com, hundreds of full-length titles available to download, plus all the $5 wrestling titles. Go watch the documentary with Freight Train on highspots.tv. You can download it or stream it. They also got wrestling rings and wrestling gear. I'm also listening to my earbuds, tweakedaudio.com/Colt. Over 30% off and free shipping just because you listen to this show. That is the show for this week. We are done. We are done. It was fun. Again, one more time, a big congrats to those guys down there. Isn't it sad? That's the feeling. Freedom, man. William Wallace style freedom. I hate mean people, man. Hey, be a good person. Whenever you do something, remember what you're doing and who it affects and why it affects people. Don't be a dick. All right. This has been The Art of Wrestling. For Colt Cabana, I'm Colt Cabana. Thanks.
Casey had come to pick me up because I needed a ride. And Casey was drinking, and he's like, man, I shouldn't be driving. I'm like, I need a ride. And we stopped at Walgreens, and he pulls into Walgreens, and when he's getting ready to park, he hits the back of the truck. And it was brand new. It was an Escalade to me. It was a nice truck, and he hits the back of it. He goes, "Oh man, what should I do?" I'm like, "Man, you're fucked up. You better get out of here." So he backs up, rips the side panel off. He leaves, but they got him on camera. They got the license plate number. They went and arrested Victor Quinones because it was in his name.